We've crossed over into the 5th month of the year, which brings much to celebrate. Teachers' Day, Mother's Day, and of course, Child Month. Here at the JIS, we're celebrating our nation's children in a special way this year. Every Sunday in May, we'll invite a bright young mind to be the co-producer of our show. Today's package was influenced by a fascinating 11-year-old. In a little while, we'll introduce you to Miss Olani Kidd, today's co-producer, and the health issues she believes every parent should be aware of. We're also keeping our eye on the economy. Now that the budget debate is over, we'll hear from one sharp financial analyst who's here to break it all down. Stay with us.
It keeps our bodies working, our food nutritious, our living and working spaces clean, and our lives comfortable. Water, the most precious resource necessary for the sustenance of life on our planet. Don't waste it. Let's conserve on this critical commodity. In the house, invest in storage containers and buckets. Take quick showers instead of long baths, and invest in water-efficient shower heads, toilets, and faucets. You may also want to consider one-pot meals and cooking methods that don't require much water. You could also wash fruits and vegetables in a bowl and reuse the water on your plants or grass. When cleaning dishes, fill both sinks and use one for washing and the other for rinsing. The leftover water can be used to wash off the concrete or asphalt in your yard. If you must wash your car at home, aim for once a fortnight and use a bucket to do the washing instead of running the hose. Don't delay. Start your water conservation practices today.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. The budget debate has just ended, so we continue to talk about issues to do with the economy. Today we have with us Dr. Andre Horton, who is a lecturer in economics at the University of the West Indies and is also a columnist for The Gleaner, writing on economic issues. We thank you so much for your company. Dr. Horton, good to have you on the show. The issue of taxation was a rather heated one in the last couple of weeks. Generally, why is taxation necessary, especially in our kind of economic situation?
When you look at Jamaica as a small island developing open economy, how we have progressed as a nation since independence, we have borrowed a lot, and we have accumulated from our borrowing this huge amount of debt. And when you compare this debt to what we produce on an annual basis, which is gross domestic product, GDP, it's one of the highest in the world. What does this mean? This means that our debt servicing, which is the amount we pay on our debt repayments, loans, and interest payments, takes a substantial amount of government receipts per year. Now, for us to move from one economic point to another, we must have some adjustments how we operate as a country. What are these adjustments? First of all, because our debt is so high, the first move is to stop borrowing.
To cut down, to reduce.
Stop borrowing.
Yes.
So that's the first move. After we stop borrowing, then we try to figure out now how are we going to, one, repay our debt, while at the same time create the economic platform for us to have growth in GDP, for us to have growth in output, so that we can address other macroeconomic indicators such as unemployment, keep prices stable, and keep the economy running smooth. How does taxes come into play? The government, from a fiscal point of view, their role is to what? Spend or collect taxes. You've seen where most countries in the West have moved out of state-led business operations.
Yes.
So it's a part of the whole IMF program, a part of modernization for governments to get rid of businesses that they normally own that are inefficient or have not been yielding any profit.
So we have greater privatization and liberalization.
So what is happening is this. The government, they only know to do two things: either collect taxes or spend. They are not businessmen, so to speak. So the IMF and other international lending organizations, other international bodies, believe that they should sublet businesses to people who are business people, so that they can operate these businesses. The sole purpose of the government, therefore, is to spend, and they only know how to collect taxes. The issue we are facing now is how to balance our budget, how to make sure that whatever we spend is equal to whatever we collect in revenue. And the additional taxes that the government is collecting this year is really in an effort for them not to borrow any additional sums.
Okay.
And that is the important thing that we need to get.
So if we didn't borrow, there's another option, which is to cut expenditure.
Yes.
So there's another option of cutting expenditure. But then that might mean cutting services that we as a people want. I mean, not fixing the roads or, not properly equipping schools and so on.
Yeah, so that is the problem. Capital expenditure is 4 billion less than it was last year. And you realize that not much capital expenses were undertaken last year, because if you visit other countries, when I'm in the UK, everywhere you are, you see construction taking place, roads being built, places being fixed, places being upgraded, and so on. And this is important for us to modernize and for us to create that platform to enhance economic growth and economic development. And if you have to cut capital expenditure on one hand, it means that whatever you're trying to put in place, whatever platform that you're trying to create,
it retards that.
Exactly. And that now is a double whammy, because the platform itself is not as firm and strong and broad as you want it to be. And at the same time, you already had economic handicaps to begin with. So where does that leave us as a country? Where does that leave us as a people? Do we want to continue to be on this path for our next 40 years? Do we want to continue to borrow to get ourselves out of problems? Do we want to continue? No. So we have to tighten up. The government have to become more efficient in how they operate, which means that a lot of the unnecessary spending, yes, they have to cut. But at the same time, certain basic spending are still important.
Yes.
Certain basic spending are still important. And the budget itself, it hasn't changed from last year. The budget is basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, no increase in real terms.
Yeah, in real terms, because inflation cancels whatever increases the accumulated.
But certainly over the last 3 years, the budget has been coming down.
Yeah, basically. And this is good, because one of the major problems we face as a country is that our governments, whether each side, they have been highly inefficient in their operations. They have been very inefficient. And what this means, it means that a lot of the spending that they budgeted for wasn't done correctly, wasn't done properly, wasn't done efficiently. How do we go about moving forward?
At this point, the budget debate has just ended, and we are discussing issues arising from the budget debate. And looking at the issue of taxation, particularly, all of us feel that we have reached our taxable limit. But why taxation? And is taxation preferable to increased borrowing or further reduction in government services? We explore this with UWI economist Dr. Andre Horton. We take a brief break.
High levels of debt eliminate a capital budget, which is essential for growth.
And that is why the government is trying to reduce the debt so that more money is available to do things like fixing roads, improving hospitals, developing the education system, and providing other amenities needed for social upliftment. The government's economic reform program is reaping results. The debt is going down.
What is good about the program is that the debt to GDP that stood at 149.4% has declined to 139.2% at the end of 2013-2014.
That means for every dollar of goods we produce, we used to owe $1.49, and now it's $1.39. The goal is to have a debt to GDP ratio of between 95 and 100% by 2020 and 60% by 2025 to 2026.
Thanks for rejoining us. We're speaking to Dr. Andre Horton, UWI economist and Gleaner columnist on the economy. So this area of taxation, there are people who say, boy, but the country has reached its taxable limit.
And I agree.
Realistically,
I agree,
but
because if people have been following my briefings leading up to now, the point is we want no taxes, no new taxes whatsoever.
But how realistic is that? Let's discuss that.
When the budget was tabled a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and we realized that capital expenditure fell relative to last year, and the budget itself hasn't changed, and we realized that the budget was 6.7 billion short. How do we go about filling this gap?
That's right.
Now, there are two options. One, we can resort to borrowing again, which would push away whatever we have been trying to achieve.
Yes.
Or we can implement certain short-run measures that will help us to put us back on our feet that we can abandon later down the line. Now, what sort of measures do we need? We need measures that will have less impact on the people who have been facing majority of the burden so far. The government have a host of options available to them. From the outside, we already know that they have been operating inefficiently in their tax collecting operations. Either party, whichever it is, they have been operating inefficiently in how they go about collecting taxes. Do we want the government to table tax collecting revenues which we know that probably they are not going to collect?
Yes.
No, we want the government to be realistic in what is going on, do it if they're doing it, and let's get it done and over with, so that we can revert to economic stability, so that we can revert to increasing employment, so that we can revert to getting GDP out, and at the same time moving our development process along the right path. And this is what we want.
What we want to deal with is the options that face the country. Let's broaden the options that face the country. So, and if it's a matter of borrowing more or taxation, wherever the taxation hits, which is preferable?
At this point,
in this case, the government has gone for some areas that are outside of the floor.
We face two possible options. It's either borrowing more on one hand, or increasing taxes or cutting government spending.
That's right.
So it's either borrowing or adjusting fiscal policy.
Okay.
Good. Now, borrowing is definitely out. So we lose this hand. Borrowing is definitely out, because given the targets that we are trying to meet, we definitely cannot borrow.
Okay.
Now, let's balance it out now. Either cut spending or collect some taxes.
Yes. Taxes that are collectible. Yes.
Cutting spending is going to hamper our developmental efforts.
That's right. Your prospects of growth.
Because spending is at its bare minimum now. Cutting spending means that we're not going to get the roads we want, we're not going to get the highways developed properly, we're not going to get the schools running in order, we have health problems. So these are great problems that we're going to face if the government is going to cut spending. So we wouldn't want the government to cut spending. What's the other option? Increase taxes marginally, so that it has little impact on the people and have a great impact on our developmental objectives. So that is a trade-off,
Yes.
and it's a plausible trade-off because when you look at it, we have to think long run. Everything cannot be about today and what is happening today. That has been our problem.
That's a very important
Our
point
problem
to
has been because we don't want to face up to the responsibility. No, we delay our payments, which is delaying the payment of taxes, which is what our fathers did while we are in a problem now. So if we delay our payment for our children, they are going to be in a bigger problem than we are now. So why not cover it now and get everything tight now? Which is what we have to do. We have to get everything tight now so that in the future we can have a better economic platform and we can have a better overall macroeconomy. Everybody agree. Jamaica is one of the most antagonistic countries where it comes down to tax. We pay tax for everything. Every single thing we pay tax. But at the same time, it is us who put ourselves in this position. And it is us who have to get ourselves out of this position. We can't delay anything else for our children to solve anymore. We have to take the responsibility upon ourselves and handle it now, tighten up government efficiency, and tighten up how we monitor ourselves at this present time.
And it has been precisely this temptation to always postpone the difficult decisions, which has made our economic condition so precarious.
Yeah. We've always been making moves to please the people. And at the same time, we've always been making moves to make ourselves look good in the people's eye. What this means delaying important decisions. We've come to the end of the road where that is concerned. We cannot borrow a dollar more because when we borrow, it's not as if you're paying back just the principal. You're paying back principal plus interest given the time. And the longer the time you take to pay it back, the more this principal, the more this interest. So borrowing is out of it. It is now putting everything under fiscal policy, which is what is important.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Dr. Andre Horton, lecturer in economics at the University of the West Indies, talking to us about economic matters, helping to clarify some important issues. Thank you for your company. Next week we'll be back. Until then, Ian Bourne wishing you a pleasant day.
If you're gonna take it to the limit, don't fake it, just make it the best and love can
Are you 35, live in Jamaica, made a worthwhile contribution to the development of your community or parish? You're eligible for the Governor General's Achievement Award. There is also an award for persons 18 to 24 years with high levels of academic achievement. And if you're 24 to 35 years, you could qualify for the Governor General's Award of Excellence.
It's not based on your personal success. It's based on your outreach, doing something to help other people.
your life and when you're
For full details of the criteria, application form, and supporting documents, visit kingshouse.gov.jm or call 927-6424. Drop off documents at King's House, Hope Road, Kingston 6, or give them to the Justice of the Peace or Custos in your parish. Application deadline May 30, 2014. The Governor General's Achievement Awards Program, recognizing excellence since 1991.
nobody can tell you what tomorrow brings. So
Allow me to introduce you to Miss Olani Kidd. She is the co-producer of today's show. Now, in observance of Child Month, 4 of the brightest young minds will be helping us to select features and script elements of the Sunday edition of Jamaica Magazine. Now, the next feature was chosen by you, Olani. Good. It's a feature on diabetes. Now, why did you decide to focus on that particular illness?
My family and I were watching television and saw this heartbreaking story of a child affected by diabetes, and I wanted the public to know more about this illness. Watch this.
Some people think diabetes is an old age condition, but not so. It's actually pretty common in children. In fact, the World Health Organization says millions of children across the world have diabetes, but many parents do not know that their children are living with the disease. Do you know that approximately 2% of adolescents, young people between 15 and 19 years old in Jamaica, have diabetes? That's what we hear from the Ministry of Health. To deal with the problem, this government body has been regularly promoting healthy lifestyle practices. The strategy is meant to reduce or prevent the incidence of diabetes in children. Diabetes is a lifestyle disease that is affecting a number of Jamaicans, both children and adults. Doctors say you're diabetic if your pancreas is not producing enough insulin. Here to tell us more about this condition is Professor Errol Morrison, President of the Diabetes Association of Jamaica. Professor Morrison, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What are the different types of diabetes and which is more common in children?
Just before I get into that, in your introduction, you said if the pancreas is not producing enough insulin. But there are other situations where the pancreas is producing adequate insulin, but the body is not using it properly. So, that right away differentiates the two. And when we begin to speak about children in particular, which is our focus today, we are talking mostly about where the pancreas is not producing insulin. So you're dead on. Now, why does the pancreas not produce enough insulin? It can be a variety of reasons. Most commonly, in children, it might simply be an infection. You might be surprised to hear that certain viral illnesses, even the good old mumps and the flu, can result in damage to the pancreas, and thus it won't function. Having just explained the underlying cause, these are categorized in two main types. Where the pancreas is not able to function because it's damaged, that is type 1, which is where the individual will need the injection of insulin. You have to put back what the pancreas would normally produce. That's type 1. Where the young person is now gaining weight and developing the diabetes because of the lifestyle, that's type 2. In bygone days, you never heard of type 2 in children. And that's why we're so concerned now that you're seeing both the types, 1 and 2, in the young.
How can you prevent it in your children?
What we need to do is to reach out to parents, guardians, friends, peers, all those who, for example, suspect that they may be more prone to developing diabetes. If there's a family history, mother, father, aunt, cousin with diabetes, then you should be advising these young children, watch out, keep your weight down. How are you going to do that? More physical activity. Let's get out and play cowboy and Indians again, right? Instead of just watching all the computers and so on at the parties. Get them into more games.
So these children, some of them now, they get diabetic from a younger age, and then they move on to adulthood and they're still diabetic. How does this impact them as an individual and the wider economy?
When a child develops diabetes, that is a label and a condition for life. Diabetes is going to be affecting the blood vessels, very importantly. The blood gets thick from the elevated sugar. It's like molasses, So it can't flow properly. It blocks the blood vessels. It's going to cause damage to the tissues. And over time, within 10 to 15 years, you can bet your bottom dollar, damage is going to be occurring in the heart, in the brain, in the kidneys, in the legs, in the nerves. And as a result of that, you will find that the quality of life is going to be affected. Now, if a young person, say in the early teens, gets this, in another 10, 15 years, they are early 30s, when they are beginning to peak in their potential for earning, investment, man-hours at the workplace. And if they are going to be now affected by the diabetic situation because the blood sugars are high, the blood vessels are being clogged, they can't function as well as they should, that is a reduction in productivity.
Thanks a lot, Professor Morrison. Experts say the main symptoms in children and adults may include excessive thirst, weight loss, lack of energy, and frequent urination. You should know that the symptoms more typical in children include tummy pains, headaches, and behavior problems. Living with diabetes can put families under considerable strain. Understanding all the different aspects of the disease and its treatment requires patience, but will really benefit your child and family life. For further information on diabetes, please consult your doctor. You can also get useful tips from the Diabetes Association of Jamaica at 1 Downer Avenue, Kingston 5. Telephone 927-6774.
Lift up your hearts with a smile. Lift up your feet with a dance. Lift up your spirits with a song. It's family time. It's family time. It's family time.
This next segment is in salute of our teachers, and it was written and produced by Olani.
T is for tolerant, able to cope with so many different personalities and behaviors. E is for experts. They are experts at what they do. A is for articulate, able to break down subject matters so that all may understand. C is for creative. They find ways to teach different topics. H is for honest, always telling the parents the truth about their children. E is for empowering, always encouraging students to do their best. R is for respectful. They respect the children and listen to their thoughts. S is for stern, strict but loving only because they want us to do well. Happy Teachers Day to all our educators when it comes, and a special shout out to the teachers at the Immaculate Conception Preparatory School.
Stand up and get in the race.
I can become the master of my destiny.
Step up your stride, make we work like a harder. Do it like Veronica, Bolt and a Sapa.
We can rise above the challenges and shine.
Was with passion in your heart. Make a plan and stop all the idling. You think I saw we reach a the edge? I can, you can. Like our Olympians, every Jamaican can.
Me no want to eat, my name Pambula, so a good education is what I'm after. The boyfriend business not upon my mind, my have a lot of reading to take up my time.
I want to rule my destiny no fall back up. I want to rule my destiny, where you said that's set for me a God picking. Come and rule our destiny no fall back up. Come and rule our destiny, yes we can, for we are all God's picking. Destiny.
Here's a thought for the week. Don't worry that children never listen to you. Worry that they are always watching you. From author Robert Fulghum.
Thanks for sharing your ideas with us right here on Jamaica Magazine, Olani.
It was great being here. I learned a lot about TV production.
And we're glad that you did. So what did you think about the discussion on the economy? Drop us a line and let us know. Email jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or send a tweet at JIS News.
You may also click on jis.gov.jm for more news stories and features.
I am Adrian Atkinson.
I'm Olani Kidd.
From all of us here at the JIS, have yourself a wonderful week.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.